All right. So with all this being said and done, and especially talking about elevator pitch, which is probably I'm the most passionate, most excited about it because it is probably my most successful lead generation tool that I have. But you have to put yourself in situations where you have that option, you have that ability to actually give your elevator pitch. And so a lot of people know Anthony Cucci with HCP Inspections, and obviously one of our number one sources when it comes down to home inspections. But Anthony has built his business through networking as opposed to anything else. And he's one of the best networkers that I know in the business. I learn from him when it comes down to networking. So we're not necessarily here to talk about home inspections, but as much as just talk about that process of networking. So Anthony, thanks for popping in. How are you, man?
Not too bad. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, so let's just jump into it because you threw out 7 tips to networking.
Yeah.
For when you hear the word networking, what pops to your head?
Relationships. So I think, and before I start, I mean, there's a million ways to build a network, right? And so this may not work for everybody, but it's stuff that I gathered, stuff that I've kind of put together, and this is how I work it. So I view networking as building relationships. A lot of people look at it as an opportunity to gain business, as kind of what's in it for me. And I think if you build relationships, they last forever. And sometimes business happens, and sometimes it doesn't directly with that person, and that's okay. And I think you have to be okay with it. So yeah, I mean, that's the word I hear is relationships when I see it.
All right. So number one, as far as your tips go, so above all else, to shine, own self, be true.
Thine, to thine.
To thine, to thine.
I figured I'd hit you guys with some Shakespeare,
Yeah,
right?
well, we forgot it was Mike, right? Mike's reading it.
Yeah. So
Self-esteem
unfair.
queen here.
Yeah. So by this, I just mean be genuine, right? Be who you are. Be a genuine person. A lot of people take tips and tricks and they try to act like the other person in the room. Maybe that person had success and they try to mirror that. And your true person doesn't come out. And people do business with people they like. People do business with people they trust. And I think a lot of times, be comfortable with who you are. Be comfortable with, in your own skin, so to speak.
What about? I mean, I take this the opposite direction. First of all, I can't work with everyone, and I don't want to work with everyone. And so instead of trying to just be all things to all people, I'm more of, hey, I'll take it or leave it type of person. This is my business model. These are the clients that I like to work with, and if you don't like it, that's fine, and be okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think that that's an evolution of your business to get to that point where you're able to take a step back and go, these are my people. This is the demographic that I actually work with well. It takes a while to get there. But to Anthony's point, people want to work with a brand. They want to work with someone that they know and that they trust. And it's, like you said, genuine. And who you portray on social media and online and in that world should be very similar to the person that they're standing in front of shaking hands with. Because if you're not, they're not going to want to continue to work with
I
you.
think everybody needs to go and look up the definition of the word brand, because I think everybody thinks it's some kind of marketing thing or some kind of advertising game or trickery. Brand is a person's feelings and perception when they're finished with your service. That's what the brand is. And so you want that consistent throughout everything. And that's what helps build, your business and what people can expect from you, and not exceed, don't overpromise. It allows you to really just deliver what you can.
Yeah, I think building your business and building your team based on how you are as a person far outshines the promises and commitments you can make on the back end that you may or may not be able to live up to.
Yep.
All right, number 2. Okay, good. So this isn't Shakespeare. I think I can read this one.
Yeah, I dumbed it down a little bit for you, Mike.
Loosen thy pitch.
Thy don't sell, thy build.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people and obviously, these tips are for like an event or an opportunity, right? So I think a lot of people go into networking events and they have a preset goal. Okay, I'm going to talk to 20 people. I'm going to go through it. I'm going to give my elevator pitch. It's not a sales call, right? So I think when you first meet people and you engage people, that's not the time to sell them with who you are. It's a time to understand who they are, what the company they represent maybe. It's gathering facts, right? And so it's the beginning of building a rapport. Like I said before, relationships last forever if you build the foundation properly.
Yeah, my strategy in these events, and we use Ryan and I we use the term shrinking the room. So I walk into a network event, there's 50 people. I walk in not with the goal of handing out 50 business cards.
Yeah.
My goal is I want to set up 2 appointments because it does become about relationships. I can't in a networking event sell and close a deal. It's almost impossible. But it's, if I meet somebody and I have that conversation and I feel like that there is the potential for me to provide value and or transact with them, then it's setting up now that follow up. So if every networking event I went to, I set up 2 to 3 appointments, that really starts to add up very, very quickly.
Well, those are great. You have to have an expected result in anything that you go into, or else why are you going into it? But at that same point, Mike, it's kind of like we were talking. Well, we've been talking for years about the housewarming parties, right? And the fact is if you get in a room and you start pitching everybody, the room's going to realize real fast, don't talk to Todd, because all he's going to do is pitch you with real estate, or that's the depth of his knowledge base. But the reality is that if you just, and you don't want to be a secret agent either, so that to our founders and CEOs perspective, Clint Fouts, you don't want to be a secret agent. You got to let people know you're in real estate. However, there's a point in time for that. Why don't you become, did we forget how to win friends and influence people? Why don't you just become a friend, a contact, a person that they might need to use sometime in the future? A resource. Yeah, stop trying to close everybody. I think we overdid the word convert.
Yeah. And I think, a lot of agents, they get into those situations, they get a little nervous to have real estate conversations, especially if they're newer, they don't have a lot of sales under their belt. People aren't looking to see how many sales you have. They're looking for guidance and feedback and advice. And we do it all the time. We go to our office happy hours or networking events. My goal to be there is to do exactly what Mike said. I want to have a conversation with one of our agents, kind of figure out what's going on in their business. I can't fix an issue or have a big conversation in that room, but I can definitely set a lunch. I can definitely set a phone call. And again, the only reason they want to talk to me is because we can work together and we can grow as a group, and the person and I can then have a conversation. I can help facilitate whatever's going on in their business, maybe make their life a little bit better. That's what these conversations are. You're not trying to sell a house in that networking event. You're just trying to build a relationship.
People are looking for a connection.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Relationships take time. And that's why, and it is about managing expectations. If you show up to an event expecting to close the deal, you're going to be disappointed and walk away with nothing. If you show up with the intent of identifying a certain number of people that I'm going to build a relationship with and take it to that next step, and that next step is the meeting or whatever that follow up is, because it takes time.
And I think you have to be okay with not making a sale with that person. Like, you have to be okay knowing that there's an opportunity there, that you might become friends, you might build a relationship, and there's no business between you two, right? And that's okay too.
Yeah.
I love this one because, and we're
getting better in the mic world.
I know. But we're going to talk about it a little bit more in depth in our Thursday class when we're talking about sphere of influence. We have a process and a system that our agents do to identify those top 12 people in their sphere of influence that could and should be sending them referrals. And we talk about setting up that initial meet. The goal always of that initial meet is, how can I figure out to provide value for you?
That's all it is.
Because at the end of the day, it's all about reciprocation. If I can provide value for you and be genuine about it, down the road, you will hopefully want to work with me or help me. So we talk about putting on our PI hat, private investigator's hat, and I'm listening, because there's got to be something in there in this initial conversation where I can provide value. And I say provide value outside of real estate,
right?
Going beyond. If you're a business owner, maybe there's somebody that I can send you, a new client or something like that.
Mike,
yeah, I think you're stealing my notes.
I don't know, but Mike, you and I have been doing this since 90 something, and I can tell you that that's exactly what we used to do. We used to say to people, if you don't know, you should be able to go through your list, your what we call a sphere, your database, the people that you know. You should be able to go through that list, and you should be able to identify not only what the person that you know does for work as employment, their spouse or their significant other or their best friend or whatever, because if you refer more people to them, they become obligated. It's an old-fashioned sales technique. They become obligated to do business with you. Doesn't always happen. To Anthony's point, you can't expect and then feel alienated if you don't get the business. But again, if you don't know what they do, you're missing a huge part of prospecting.
I think the key to this point that I was trying to make is you have to earn your ask, right? Like you have to earn the opportunity to do business with them. And the only way you earn that is by providing value, like you said, outside of your scope, right? Absolutely. And I think it takes us into our next point. I mean, I say be purposely intentful, right? Be deliberate in your actions. Be present. I think a lot of times people get to events and they're talking to somebody and they're engaging with somebody, but they're really not listening, right? They're just worried about being able to get to that next person. And it's not about rushing off to the next conversation. Just say you hit 10 people or whatever. It's about being in the moment and being present. And I think that's probably the most important thing, because people feel like when you're having a conversation, people understand and people feel when you're just yesing them or just trying to move on. And it's not a pleasant feeling, right? Like I've been on the receiving end of that. It's not great. Like you want to feel important. You want to feel like the conversation you're having, I'm dedicating my time to you by having this conversation. You're not even listening to me. Like the relationship's dead right there, right?
I think it's a weird badge of honor that we wear in our current society to be busy. Like we want everyone to think that we're always running around and we're always rushing around. But when people see that, they start to hesitate to reach out to you because they don't want to bother you. They don't want to waste your time with these silly questions. So I love this point, and I think it's something that we should focus more on and reminding ourselves, be in that conversation, be in that phone call. If someone calls you and they go, well, how's your day? If you're always, oh, I'm super busy, I have to do this, then I have to go do that, then I have to go to that. It's like, okay, I'm so sorry for wasting your time. But it's, I mean, how's your day? Oh, it's great. What can I do for you? And you give them that, all of your focus there, they're going to feel more comfortable having a conversation with you. There's going to be no hesitation to reach out whenever.
If you think about when you meet somebody, if you can't remember their name seconds after they've told it to you, that's not a memory master's problem. What you're realizing is that you have a different purpose than the conversation is headed. Your purpose is to maybe wait for that second of silence so you can jump in and give that your opinion or your feelings or your something. When in actuality, if you slowed the roll to the point where you're just having a true purposeful conversation, then it's funny, you'll remember people's names by mistake. And it's the exact opposite. It's because if you can't remember people's names, it's because all you're there for is to let them hear you, not for you to hear them.
Yeah, it's kind of a two-edged sword. I mean, at the end of the day, the intent is to build our business, but it can't have that appearance that that's what you're all about. And so going back, I think 3 and 4 just it goes hand in hand. Because I'm one of those people. I'm a talker, and I generally find myself the most interesting person in the room. So I would rather hear myself, right?
Yeah.
And it is when I'm in networking events, Anthony, I literally have to sit myself down and kind of just have a little motivational talk with myself of, listen, pal, it's not about you. Your job is to figure out what's going on with everybody else and how can you bring that value to them. Because when you do that, there is a level of satisfaction when you can be the rainmaker for everybody else and you can bring that value. But I did want to touch on one of the things on point 3, Anthony, is talking about deliverables. If we're having a conversation with someone and we say we're going to do something, we're going to introduce you to so and so or whatever the case is, you have to do it, because when you don't meet those deliverables, it's the business is out the door.
Yeah, and it could be something super small that you've committed to, and if you don't live up to that, that reflects how you're going to transact with everything else, right? And so, yeah, absolutely, I agree wholeheartedly.
And the timing behind that too. I mean, if you say you're going to do something, don't like draw it out, get it done.
Yeah, this next one's not mine. There's a book called Grow Your Network, and they talk about the 4 C's of networking, right? So confidence, credibility, clarity, and connectivity. So as Nick was saying earlier, I don't think I don't want to say I don't think, but a lot of people have issues with confidence, right? They don't feel like they're credible. Maybe they haven't had a ton of sales or anything like that. But believe that you bring value to that conversation. Believe that you bring value to that relationship, and just work off that, right? Don't talk out of your backside. Don't pretend that you know something that you don't. It's okay to say, hey, I'm not an expert in that, but I know somebody who is, and bring that to the relationship. So confidence is key. Competence is key. People sniff out real quick if you're talking out of your backside, right? And so I think that's super important. Credibility, like I said, knowing what you're saying, knowing that your knowledge or your skill set, you know, brings value, right? Um, I think it's super important, right? And it establishes credibility. And it may not be what the conversation's about, but if you can work in how you relate to that subject, you're adding instant credibility. Um, Clarity, and this is something I work on a lot. I'm kind of a squirrel guy. Like my conversations go 10 different directions.
We know.
Thanks, Mike. And so I think it's just important to be clear, right? Be clear with what you're doing, be clear in what you're saying, be clear in your communications. Like you alluded to earlier, if you're committing to introducing somebody to somebody, be clear. When are you going to do that? Hey, I'll get to you in the next week. I'll have it to you by Friday. Don't just say, hey, I'll get around to it, right? So, and the last thing is connectivity. Like I think what we talked about earlier, everybody's looking for a connection. And when you're first engaging people, it's about that quality of the conversation. It's about that connection. I think a lot of people, like you said earlier, are just in a rush to hand out business cards. Hey, I handed out 100 business cards tonight. Okay, well, how many conversations did you have? And I think that's super important.
Yeah, we could spend an hour on this one. I mean, it's one of the things that we just constantly focus on our team meetings is we're not in the business of being real estate agents. We're not in the business of selling homes. We're in the business of helping people understand information. We are the providers of information. And I always start with what's on people's minds right now. Okay, they don't want a CMA. They don't care about CMA. They don't even know what a CMA is. There's so many things that, as traditionally, we try to cram down people's throats with information and knowledge, and it's not the things that they care about. What they care about right now is understanding the market. They care about interest rates. They care about where the market's going. They care about, did I miss the boat? Do they care about, is there money still to be made in real estate? Is this a good time to buy? Is this a good time to sell? And the answer is always yes, no matter what. But with that, when you understand what's on people's minds, and you can have intelligent conversations with them. We spend so much time on this weekly podcast talking about overcoming objections and so forth. Then people start coming to you because you are the credible source. That's all I do. I provide information for my sphere of influence, people around me, and I can't go anywhere in my sphere of influence world without people wanting to talk real estate, because they know that I know when it's time for them to do something, they're going to come to me. They know they're not threatened to talk to me because all they're going to get from me is my perspective on what's going on in the market. And that is when you're in a networking setting, be that, provide the information, and that will build the credibility.
Eliminate the noise, right? I always tell people, if you can be the person that somebody comes to eliminate all the noise they're hearing from outside the community, if you can be that resource, you've already won.
Yeah, so I would as an encouragement to our agents, to those of you that are listening, I mean, attend events that are going to help you understand the market, overcome this. I know that Tina Tambor has her Monday morning or Monday thing. Oh my God, why you wouldn't be listening to that? And Todd, I know you post everything, the numbers.
It's different.
But you post, I mean, know those things. Know the numbers, know what's going on so that you can become the source of information. It was so much easier, Todd, when we got started in this business because there was no internet. We were the only source of information. If you wanted information about buying a home or selling a home, you had to go to a realtor. It's not the case anymore. They don't need to come to a realtor to understand it, and therefore it becomes a lot of noise.
Yep.
All right, expand your network. Organic comfort is a killer, quality over quantity.
Yeah. So I feel like, it's human nature to when you get an event and you feel awkward or you don't know anybody, you migrate to the people you know
Mm-hmm.
and you have conversations. And maybe it's an hour an event and you spend 30 minutes talking to your buddies. That's not what that's for, right? You have to get out there. But I see it every day. I see it all the time.
So,
We host happy hours, we host events, and people huddle in a corner. And it's like you interact with those people every day. There's 30 people at this table that you've never talked to. How are you not having a conversation with them? And so, yeah, I think, organically you're comfortable with the people and it kills everything. And then like I said earlier, I can't focus on this one enough. It's about the quality of the interactions, not quantity.
I have a little story about the organic comfort as a killer. So I started in real estate at West USA 11 years ago. About 6 months after I started, some random guy sat in the front of the room and started yelling at me about steaks. And that was the day Mike and I became friends. And we worked together for many, many years. Well, when I first moved up into my role at West USA and I was asked to start participating in the networking event, the happy hours, I was a new realtor. I had no idea what value I could bring to an agent in a conversation. So whenever I saw Weinstein at a happy hour, I just stuck right next to him and I just kind of listened to what he was saying, but we would end up having a conversation. I remember after a few months, I got called into the boss's office and he was like, "Hey, we're sending you to these networking events to talk to the agents, not to Weinstein. So go talk to the agents." So it was a kind of gentle reminder, but it kind of pushed me into that outside of my comfort zone. I had to go and speak to agents outside of the ones that I knew and talk about different things in their business. And you get better at it every time you do it. And you'll be surprised how fast it comes because you do have the knowledge. You're listening to the podcast every single week. So you're learning these things.
this is funny because, I imagine, you go to a bar or you're off work and you're going and you're single and you're looking to, find someone that might be a good partner. And, where do you go? And, and you get there and there's all these people and you select a few people visually that you think you'd like to go up and talk to. And then you build all these self-inflicted obstacles of why you can't go over there and say hello, and all of a sudden somebody else does. You missed out. Well, that's just like what's happening in real estate. Somebody else is getting them before you do because you're killing yourself by all these self-limitations that you add because you don't want to step outside and do something that is relatively uncomfortable.
And make no mistake about it, I think if you leverage that relationship that you have with somebody and they can introduce you to somebody you're looking
perfect.
to, absolutely. Yeah. But don't sit in a corner and just talk to somebody for an hour. It's not at the same point.
You didn't win.
Yeah. At the same point, these events aren't an all-you-can-eat buffet, right? Like it's not about.
They should be.
But it's not about just going in and having the conversation with as many people as you can, right? Dropping off business cards at tables or anything like that, right? Like it's quality. You want a steak, not a hamburger. Yeah.
And I would just also say on this point too, I'm not into. I know Todd, you are a lot more into personality assessments and things like that. But you do have to know whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. Absolutely. When you're at networking events. Yep. An extrovert obviously has to. An extrovert has an easier time working the room. The introvert doesn't. And they'll find that one person to talk to, and then they'll be with that person for the entire time. So you just have to be aware of who you are. But that's why for me is it's just knowing what the strategy is, knowing what the goal is. When I walk into a room, again, for me personally, the goal is not to hand out I don't even carry business cards. My goal is to walk away with contact information from at least 2 people, depending on how long that event is. And I don't know whether I should say this, but it's just what I do. I'm going to say it anyways. But it's funny. I do go to a lot of these happy hours. And I just noticed, especially a lot of our industry partners, they're investing money to feed us and to give us drinks, which I appreciate. But oftentimes they're just all in a corner and they've never once leave that corner and go out and you're here to talk to me as the agent and but we then in turn do that sometimes as agents as well.
So I just got to follow up with a
well, there you go.
Well, there you go. With the introvert extrovert thing. If you're the kind of person that would like to have consumers come to you That's like a retail sales environment. You want somebody else really to do the work. Okay, you're an introvert. If you are the kind of person who goes out and creates that business, you introduce the conversation, you're an extrovert. And so if you just look back at the last 6 months of your life, which of those two are you? It'll just immediately help you realize where do you need to be to make something happen. If you're that introvert, you need to be at open houses, or you need to be at some kind of events, or creating events yourself that you can draw people to for a different reason, or even for the same reason, and then work that. But if you're the other kind of person, you get up every morning and it's a statistic. If I go out and meet 100 people, I'm going to close 1.5 deals. So you just go do it.
All right.
I'm going to add one more point to that.
Yeah.
And I know we're on time, but I would say if you're an introvert, or if social anxiety is a real thing, right? And so there's nothing wrong with a buddy system, right? There's nothing wrong with going at it as a pair, having somebody introduce you, starting that. I feel like once that conversation starts, a lot of people get comfortable and it's rolling, and kind of just feed off each other back and forth. There's nothing wrong with that either.
All right.
That's a great idea.
All right, last one. I love this one because, Thursday we're going to talk about housewarming parties.
Yeah.
And here's what I tell my team. If you go to all of this effort to put together a housewarming party and follow our strategies and invest money, and you don't follow up, you are nothing but an event planner.
Well, you're wasting your time, right? Like,
And your money.
You're just putting together an event.
and it's funny that we even have to post this, right? But statistically speaking, it's rarely done. People rarely follow up with the relationships they initiate, they encounter. I'll tell a funny story, and I won't name names. I was at a happy hour, shocker. But I was at a happy hour, and another vendor and I were talking, and he probably had like a 40-minute conversation with a CEO of a fairly large company. And they were talking, and then it got personal. They talked about golf, and the CEO, I mean, this is a buying question to me, but the CEO is like, we should plan a golf event. He's like, we should go golfing together. And I left the conversation, and I saw my friend about a week later or so. I was like, hey, where are you guys going golfing? He's like, what are you talking about? I was like, you had a conversation with so-and-so, and he invited you to go play golf. Where did you set that up? He's like, oh, I haven't called him back yet. I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
No.
Right? He's like, well, that's not what I was there for. I'm like, no, absolutely. You were absolutely, that's what you were there for.
Yeah.
And so I think you miss the boat when you don't follow up, and it's a loss leader, right?
Well, and I would just say this. I mean, and this is going to be a good segue because Nick wanted to talk about a wise agent. Follow up starts with your CRM system. I do not have the ability or the skill set to remember every conversation that I have every single day or every single week and the amount of people that I meet. It's almost daily. I wish it was daily. I wish I was a little more disciplined, but every single day, inputting all your information from that day into CRM system.
Yep.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of questions about specific CRMs. So just real quick, not to pitch, but if you ask me or anybody at the West USA corporate office what CRM we recommend, we would generally going to recommend Wise Agent CRM. If you go to westusacrm.com, it's going to take you to a landing page. It's going to allow you to sign up for their CRM system. You're going to get the full Wise Agent CRM. It's $30 a month. You also, for being a West USA agent, get unlimited text and video text. It's a very big deal. As we know, phone calls, emails are going to always go to spam. Texting is still got a 97.8% open rate. Video text is even higher than that. So being at West USA, you get that included at no additional charge. So if you're looking to try out a CRM, check out Wise Agent CRM. They're local. They're in Fountain Hills. They're going to be on the podcast that I'm doing later this week if you want to get more information, but you can definitely go to westusacrm.com and check them out.
All right.
Love it.
Thanks, Anthony.
Yeah, thanks for
Good
having me.
stuff,
Very
man.
cool.
Good stuff. And just as a quick
Amazing.
reminder, Anthony is the owner of HCP Property Inspections. He is, I'll just say it, my go-to
Mine
when
too.
it comes down to home
Same.
inspections for not only myself, but for our team. And there's a reason for it. So if you're in the business or in the market of needing a home inspection company or a new home inspection company, I can't recommend him any more than I do. And so that is always first and foremost
He's
because
also a
Scissors
very
with bell.
successful business entrepreneur.
Yeah.
He's run many businesses. So our vendor industry partners are there to help us with our real estate stuff, but they also could be a great resource for you to learn from growing your business. And so that's what, Anthony's here today to do that, because he's doing this for agents every day.
and always increasing his business acumen. Appreciate everybody joining us today. Oh, look at that. We had a
Ooh,
little
it's fun.
it's fun. I don't even know how to
That's
do
cute.
that. All right. Leave you with the quote of the day from Tom Ferry. When you put genuine inspiration behind your actions, the whole world opens up to you. Appreciate everybody joining us today. Go out and sell a home.